unfortunately, a minority of representatives in the House of Representatives or in the US Senate can, through manipulating the rules of either of those legislative bodies, create riders on bills that prevent the advancement of medical research in ways that conflict with their personal ideology. There's something called the Dickey-Wicker Amendment that for years has stopped certain types of stem cell research using embryonic stem cells that were excess cells that would have been thrown away after in vitro fertilization procedures were completed by families who wanted to dedicate their extra cells on the hope that their family and other families wouldn't suffer the same kind of chronic diseases that their ancestors had. So just in this last 4 months, there's 22 members of the US Senate and 78 members of the House of Representatives who wrote to President Trump advocating that he should outlaw embryonic stem cell research and fetal stem cell research and therapies, despite the fact that fetal stem cell research was used in testing the very therapies that saved President Trump from COVID-19. So the irony is that despite the pandemic and despite understanding how critical it is for science not to be suppressed and for scientific research to advance to deal with infectious diseases like COVID-19, which the California Stem Cell Research Agency is funding, as well as other chronic diseases and injuries. There are these members of both parties who will have declared that they are prepared to try and use appropriation bills, for example, in the Senate, that require a 60% approval vote. So no one party can pass them. And so if individuals of a particular party decide that they ideologically don't like this, they can trade off with the head of the Senate and say, we're only going to vote for your budget if, in fact, you put a rider on here that stops this research. Today, in the 21st century, we have a condition where the National Institutes of Health, the funder for the federal government for research and clinical trials, is not funding clinical trials using embryonic stem cells or fetal stem cells because of this ideological suppression. Those are those embryonic and fetal stem cells, respectively, are the very therapy sources that appear on path to provide a therapeutic effective cure for type 1 diabetes, for paralysis, for blindness. So while we have the opportunity of extraordinary change, at the very same time, there's those individuals in the federal government, in the House and the US Senate, who would suppress the very science that we need to get these therapies in human trials with strong preliminary proof of concept through to phase 3 trials and to patients. It is an extraordinary moment. I personally say to these individuals, whether they're senators or House members, you know, if it were your family, would you stop these therapies? Would you leave a young man paralyzed for life? Would you leave a mother who has a genetic form of blindness, who hasn't seen her children for a decade, blind for the rest of her life? how would you make the choice if it was your family? Please respect the fact that I will respect your religion, but respect me as a parent and every family and those parents and spouses, and give them the right to choose the best therapy for their family. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there are individuals in the government, in the Congress, who are so ideologically fixed, they will not give another family the respect to let that family follow their doctor's advice.